Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Carol Moulton coming to you once again with Tea Time with Carol. I hope and pray that things are going well with you today. Um, these are interesting times that we live in, and if you're not really anchored, it can be a cause of a lot of anxiety and stress and disconnect and just all kinds of craziness in your life if you're not um, real clear about what's really going on and how to interpret it and um, how to figure out where you fit into all of it. So for just a few minutes today, I'm here to just chit chat a little bit with you about your GPS system. But before we get into that, let me just welcome you in. Um, the pillows are fluffed, the tea has been poured, and we're sticking with our citrus. What the heck? Citrus lavender. Yeah. We've been pouring that for a couple of weeks now, and because I think I really, really like it. The other thing that I have discovered that I really, really like is raw honey. And that's the honey with the honeycomb in it. It's kind of like wax, kind of, sort of, and you can kind of chew it, but I like it. And it's supposed to be really good for you. It's supposed to be full of like antioxidants and just all kinds of good stuff. So, raw honey and citrus lavender. Wonderful combination. So, all right. So, where are we? GPS. So, we're talking about your GPS system. And GPS, I mean, everybody's got one now, on your phone. And you used to have to buy them separately and mount them on your dashboard and depend on these GPS systems to navigate your way, even if you're only going around the block. You don't even know how to figure out from A to B or read a map anymore. Everybody uses the GPS system. Well, what does GPS even stand for? It's Global Positioning System, and it tells you where you are in relationship to the rest of the world. So my question for you today is, what GPS system are you using? Because you kind of need one to navigate this craziness that is going on in the world. And I find it interesting. I've had to kind of step back a little bit from Facebook and some of the other social media. Not that I dislike it or not that I feel that it's inherently evil, but I'm finding that people are confusing um, research with, opinion with research and opinion with fact. And 5 minutes of looking up stuff on Google does not does not equal research. Um, in fact, I have a coffee cup that I purchased some years ago. It says something like, "Don't confuse your your time on Google." I'm misquoting it, but it's something like this. Don't confuse your looking up things on Google with my law degree. And I think that because social media has become these very public public square kind of things. We're confusing. We act like everybody's speaking with some level of authority, and then we quote what other people have said, and then it becomes this cascading. Oh, well, everybody is saying, and it becomes like almost a fact, air quotes, facts. So back to my question: what GPS system are you using? Are you using these random posts? And in social media as your authority, or are you dependent on something else, So let me just put this in context for you a little bit. When GPS systems first came out, people were using them to the point where common sense just, they would just follow whatever the GPS said, kind of blindly. And they hadn't been perfected, and they weren't always updated as rapidly as they perhaps are now. And I remember a woman following her GPS system drove into a lake and then sued the maker of her navigation system because she said she was following it and it told her to drive into the lake, and that's what she did. And of course she lost her car and all of her possessions, but um, I feel like that's kind of where we are now, where we're following things blindly and without the use of common sense, or any common sense is not always so common, but with any kind of sense at all, we're just following what other people say, and we're, you know, it's just gotten kind of crazy. It's just kind of crazy right now. So, if you'll permit me, I just want to give you a couple of thoughts on where we are right now, and I'm not making any. I don't make any judgments on your GPS system. If you rely on folks' opinions on social media, so be it. But I feel like my job is to try to lessen the anxiety a little bit and to just help folks with where they are. So this is my take on things. Impartial. This is not my chapter and verse. I mean, this is not it. But just a little bit of how I see things. I think that where we are right now is that we're being driven to connect to things in a different way. Our connection has always been to external. We didn't have to do the internal work quite as much. Our connection has always been externally driven. Look at another movie, look at another post. You seek answers from outside of yourself. Even if it's church, our relationship with God has not always, but for some folks, been driven by external forces. Whatever someone else told you to do or believe or say or think, that's what you did without question. And so for a lot of people, the pandemic became a source of extreme dis-ease, and not just because of the virus, but because there was nobody to tell them what to think or say or believe or do or think. And so we're being driven to look internally right now, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's a great thing that we're looking now on the inside. And if you look, there's this huge increase in coaches. Everybody and their brother has a coaching business right now, myself included. I am an executive coach, and it's not bad. I mean, I'm not being critical at all, but I think it's in response to the need that people have and haven't been taught to look on the inside, and get answers from the inside, because we've been taught, look to an external source, look to something outside of yourself. And now I think we're moving into a new era of, what does your highest self want? What serves your highest self the best? And looking inside for answers is not always comfortable for some people, because we haven't been taught to do that. We haven't learned how to quiet ourselves enough to even know how to do that. When a challenge comes up, what do? You run to the phone, call your friends, you write a post about it, you do all these, again, external things, and haven't learned to quiet, and just focus on your breath. Just be quiet and learn how to let the answer come up. You'll get an answer if you just stay quiet, long enough to get it. So the question is, in your GPS system, who are you depending on the most? Is it your friend's opinion? Is it your spouse's opinion? Is it your parents' opinion? Is it yourself? Or is it, are you dependent on what God said about situations? He's covered everything. Everything that could possibly come up is covered. You may not like it, you may not want to hear it, but it's all covered. It's all in there. So, when you get quiet and when you learn how to listen, then you'll get the answer. What does God want for me? And, some people don't say God. Some people say infinite intelligence. Some people say source. Some folks say, the creator. Whatever name you use, it's fine, but learning how to lean in and listen. And part of that, when you recognize that you came from that infinite source, you came from the creator, you came from God, there is the creative spark within you, then you realize that walking around in anxiety and in fear and afraid to exhibit all the gifts and talents that have been poured into you is living beneath your privilege. There is a part of God that lives within you. He breathed into man, and man became a living soul. That spark, that breath, lives within you. And so, no matter what the circumstances look like, Source, God, is still in control. So how can you worry? How can you be afraid? You're magic. You are wonderfully made. You're a powerful being. How can you be afraid? Why are we running around, labeling each other? I don't understand it. I mean, it seems like everyone is pointing fingers. Oh, it's the media. Oh, it's the Republicans. Oh, now even the Republicans are divided. Now, they're talking about rhinos. Those are Republicans in name only. They want to castigate them. Oh, leftist Democrats. You can't just be a Democrat. Oh, you're a leftist Democrat, And all of these things mean nothing when you look at the issues that we're being faced with today, with global warming. Italy this week had temperatures of 118 degrees. That's the warmest, the hottest that it's ever been recorded in Italian history. Ice caps are melting. I mean, all these things. The waters are running hot. We're running out a planet, to mess up. And we're worried about what color somebody's skin is. And we want to stack the deck because we don't want those people to be able to vote. What are we doing? What Sam heck are we doing? We need to get this together. We're using the wrong GPS system. The GPS system that we're using is, in order for me to be up, somebody else has to be down. Because underneath that is a belief that there's not enough for everybody. And so I've got to stack the deck to make sure that I'm up, and I've got to keep other people down. It's very dangerous to play that game. It's very, very dangerous. So, bringing this back to kind of where things are individually, and for perhaps you, I'm finding that a lot of the ways in which we are viewing things, the things that are going on right now in the world, are out of our childhood trauma. And I'll talk more about this at a later date. But basically, what I'm seeing is that people respond to things in a way where they think everybody feels the same way about it, whether it's the response to the virus or the response to the request for folks to vaccinate, to get the vaccine, or the anti-vaxxers. There's a lot of knee-jerk reaction to things, and a lot of it has to do with your worldview, and a lot of the worldview is being shaped by ego, and the ego is being shaped by childhood trauma. And if you haven't dealt with that, then there's a tendency to see everything in those kinds of ways. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you grew up with, for example, a narcissistic parent, who was very dictatorial and felt like their will had to be imposed on everything and you had no voice, then you may hear the requests for you to be vaccinated, or the requests for you to wear a mask, or the mandates for you to be vaccinated, or the mandates for you to wear a mask, as a dictatorial parent. And you may think that this is your narcissistic parent all over again, and you think that everybody would see those requests in the same way. And all of this is part of the shaking of our traditions, the shaking of what's going on in the world right now. And so my invitation to you is to take a step back, take a deep breath, and see if maybe your feelings and your response and your reaction to things that are going on in the world are really more about your traumas that you have not resolved, and that you're superimposing on what's going on in the world. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. So I'm just throwing that out there as something you may want to look at and think about and pray about, and see if that fits for you. And if it does, I invite you to do some more work in that regard. I'm always available. You can hit me up on Facebook, or on my page, or on my website, and book a time to connect with me. Um, First sessions are no charge, and my website is MoultonExecutiveCoaching.com, and Moulton is spelled Moulton, executivecoaching.com. My friends in Louisiana call me Mouton. That L gets lost somewhere, but it's Moulton. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out. I mean, underneath of it all, I feel that there is a lot of fear and a lot of disconnect, and we're just not connecting with ourselves. And when you are able to do that, when you connect with who you are, when you get back in touch with not only who you are, but whose you are, then you can navigate the world and all this craziness a lot better. And you see it for what it is, that new things are coming into play. The world that we grew up with, the world that we were accustomed to, is gone, essentially. And that doesn't have to be a scary thing. It may be that there are new and better things that are being birthed right now. And one of them has to do with understanding who you are and your own value, and understanding how to look for solutions within, and being more internally driven and not externally driven. It always concerned me that, and this, I'm not being critical, and I hope you don't hear it that way, but it always concerned me that, I grew up in church, and I grew up Catholic, actually, and at some point later, I really hate labels, so I don't even like talking in that way. But it concerned me that the church that I attended, folks considered themselves good members and worshipers, but their only understanding was based on what came across the pulpit every Sunday. And when I started really studying, I felt that I didn't know anything. So I ended up going to the seminary because I didn't want to depend on one person's interpretation for what I believed. And I'm not suggesting everybody go to the seminary, although I don't think that would be a bad thing necessarily. But I think relying on what other people say you should believe to the exclusion of everything else is not a good thing. I think it's important to study and know things for yourself. Study and show yourself approved. That was the mandate given to Timothy. He's an interesting person too, by the way. But anyway, I digress. So, bottom line, it's healthy to become aware of when you're making decisions out of ego, when you become aware that your focus has been external, when you become aware that you need to become more internally driven, and you start taking action and start doing your own research, not just on Google, but really learning more about yourself and more about the world and more about God, and really studying God and really talking to God and asking him, her, what he thinks about all the things that are going on right now. Just having a conversation and just seeing what comes up, you know, you know, to spend some time there, making a decision. Well, I could meditate for another 20 minutes or so, or I could binge on, I could spend another 20 minutes on Netflix or The Real Housewives. Okay, that's your choice. What does your higher self say? What does your higher self want in that situation? Hmm. You get to choose. You get to choose. But if you spend the time in meditation, you may get an answer that comes up and resolves a big issue that you've been struggling with. Or you may get an idea that makes you $1 million next year. It's possible. Or you may be directed to go someplace and meet someone that leads to you getting the dream job that you've always wanted. You know, it's worth you spending the time and um, finding out what your higher self, you know, that higher self wants. And it's not the baby who cries out for more ice cream. It's not the ego-driven child. It is the grown-up, magical, wonderful you. The you that walks fearlessly throughout the world. The you that sees racism and makes a decision not to be stopped by it. The you that is so magnificent that demons tremble when you walk by. They're scared to mess with you. You know they have no authority. None. They don't have authority over you. So anyway, all right. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. Um, I just want you to know I love you. I'm praying for you. The invitation that I made for you to connect with me is, out from the most sincerest part of me, and I want the absolute best for you, absolutely. So until next time, remember everything you want is on the other side of fear. And be blessed. Take care. And we'll see you again real soon. Love you. Bye bye.